A road rage bullies target quiet driver. They had no idea. He was an ex-Special Forces operative. Marcus Hayden winced as the blaring horn behind him continued its assault on his eardrums. He glanced in his rearview mirror, his soft brown eyes, taking in the aggressive black pickup truck riding his bumper. At 32, Marcus was still frequently mistaken for someone much younger, his slight 5'9" frame and gentle demeanor making him seem almost boyish despite the flecks of gray beginning to appear in his dark hair. "Come on, move it. Grandpa!" A hand emerged from the pickup's driver's side window, making an obscene gesture. Marcus sighed and maintained his speed. The posted limit was 45, and that's exactly what he was doing. He'd only been in Riverdale for 3 weeks since accepting the accounting position at Midwest Financial. The quiet suburb of Chicago had seemed perfect. Affordable housing, good schools for when he eventually started a family, and supposedly friendly people. So far, the last part hadn't quite materialized. His grip tightened on the steering wheel of his modest Honda Civic. The car wasn't much to look at, 10 years old with a few dents and rust spots, but it was reliable. He'd purchased it after selling his previous vehicle, a choice that had been part of his conscious decision to leave his old life behind. Just ignore them. It's not worth it. You promised yourself. No more confrontations. The black truck suddenly swerved into the passing lane, engine roaring as it accelerated alongside Marcus. 3 young men were inside, all appearing to be in their mid-20s. The driver, a muscular guy with a closely cropped mohawk and sleeve tattoos, glared over at Marcus. "Hey, princess, learn to drive or get off the road," he shouted before cutting sharply in front of Marcus's Honda, forcing him to brake suddenly. Marcus took a deep breath. He'd dealt with worse than road rage in his life. Much worse. He glanced at the small scar on his right hand, a permanent reminder of his previous career. 8 years in Special Forces, including 3 tours in combat zones that had left him with more than just physical scars. The therapist had been clear. Find a quiet life, avoid triggers, build new patterns. That's why he'd chosen accounting. Numbers didn't scream, numbers didn't bleed. Numbers made sense. The truck was now deliberately slowing down in front of him, forcing Marcus to reduce his speed to 30 miles per hour. Other cars began honking as they passed, some drivers shooting annoyed glances at Marcus, as if he were the problem. As they approached the next intersection, the light turned yellow. The truck accelerated suddenly, clearing the light, while Marcus, now caught in the dilemma zone, had to stop as the signal turned red. Through his windshield, he could see the 3 men laughing in their truck across the intersection. "Let it go, Marcus. They're just kids being stupid." When the light turned green, Marcus proceeded cautiously. He needed to stop at Riverdale Market to pick up groceries anyway. Maybe the truck would be long gone by then. To his dismay, as he pulled into the shopping center parking lot, he spotted the black pickup parked near the entrance, its occupants lounging against the vehicle, drinking energy drinks. Marcus parked as far away from them as reasonably possible and sat in his car for a moment, gathering himself. He didn't need a confrontation today. He didn't need a confrontation any day. His last psych evaluation before discharge had been clear about his tendency to dissociate during high-stress confrontations, a coping mechanism that had served him well in combat but made him unpredictable in civilian situations, according to the military psychologist. He exited his car and walked toward the market, keeping his eyes forward, shoulders slightly hunched to minimize his presence. It almost worked. "Well, look who it is." The driver of the pickup pushed himself away from his vehicle. "It's driving." "Miss Daisy!" Marcus kept walking, his pace steady. "Hey, I'm talking to you!" The man stepped directly into Marcus's path. Up close, he was even more imposing, at least 6'2", with broad shoulders and arms that strained the seams of his tight t-shirt. A name was tattooed on his neck. Drake. "Excuse me," Marcus said quietly, attempting to step around him. 2 more men flanked Drake. One was almost as tall but lankier, with a patchy beard and a baseball cap turned backward. The other was shorter but stocky, with a shaved head and gold chains around his neck. "This is Ryan and Trent," Drake said, gesturing to his companions. "We were just wondering what kind of person drives like their grandmother on Sunday." "I was going the speed limit," Marcus replied, his voice calm and measured. Ryan, the lankier one, snickered. "The speed limit is for pussies, man." "Look at this guy," Trent added, the gold chains jangling as he moved closer. "Bet he's never been in a fight in his life." A small crowd of shoppers had begun to gather, some watching with concern, others with their phones raised, anticipating drama worthy of social media. No one intervened. "I don't want any trouble," Marcus said, feeling the familiar tightening in his chest. "I just need to get my groceries." Drake poked Marcus in the chest with a thick finger. Maybe you should learn how to drive first, princess. That piece of crap car shouldn't even be on the road. Marcus felt something shift inside him, a tiny pivot point where his new life and old life balanced precariously. He pushed it down. Please step aside. Drake looked at his friends, feigning shock. Did you hear that? Please step aside. What? Are you some kind of fancy butler? His expression hardened. How about you say please when you're begging us not to flatten your tires? The threat to his vehicle, his means of getting to work, his independence, brought a flash of heat to Marcus's face. Still, he maintained his composure. That would be a mistake. Ooh, Ryan mocked, stepping closer. A mistake. I'm so scared. An older woman among the onlookers finally spoke up. Leave him alone, I'm calling security. Drake barely glanced at her. Mind your own business, Grandma. He turned back to Marcus. Your car offends me. Maybe we should fix it up a bit while you're shopping. He made a punching motion toward his own palm. Marcus felt his heartbeat slow, the way it always did before an operation. Time seemed to stretch. Don't touch my car. Or what? Drake challenged, stepping so close that Marcus could smell the energy drink on his breath. Just don't. With that, Marcus sidestepped the trio and walked into the market, his back rigid, with tension. Behind him he heard laughter and jeering comments, but no footsteps following. Inside, Marcus moved through the aisles mechanically, placing items in his basket without really seeing them. The confrontation had shaken him more than he wanted to admit, not because he was afraid of those men, but because he was afraid of himself, of what he might do if pushed too far. After paying for his groceries, Marcus headed back to the parking lot, a sense of dread growing with each step. As he rounded the corner, his worst fears were confirmed. The three men were circling his Honda like vultures. Drake was holding something in his hand, a knife or screwdriver. Marcus couldn't tell from this distance. The other two were laughing. As Drake leaned down toward the front tire, something cold and analytical took over Marcus's thinking. He set his grocery bags down carefully by the store entrance and walked toward his car, his gait changing subtly. Gone was the slight hunch, the attempt to appear smaller. Each step now held purpose and precision. Hey! Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the parking lot with unexpected authority. Drake straightened up, a box cutter in his hand. Well, look who's back. We were just admiring your ride. Thought it could use some custom ventilation in the tires. The small crowd from earlier had grown, with several people now openly filming with their phones. A market security guard stood at the edge of the group, speaking into his radio, clearly waiting for backup rather than engaging. Step away from my car, Marcus said, his voice eerily calm. Drake laughed and turned to his friends. You hear this? Guy, step away from my car. He mimicked Marcus's voice in a whiny tone. What are you going to do, call the cops? By the time they get here, all 4 of your tires will be flat, and maybe we'll add some custom pinstriping to the paint job. Marcus stopped 10 feet away from the group. Last warning. Something in his tone finally registered with Drake. His smirk faltered momentarily before returning with forced bravado. Last warning? Who do you think you are? He gestured with the box cutter. You see this? This says I give the warnings here. Time slowed for Marcus. He noticed everything. The way Ryan's weight was distributed unevenly, favoring his right leg. How Trent's hand kept touching the pocket of his jeans, suggesting a weapon. The slight tremor in Drake's hand holding the box cutter, betraying his lack of experience with weapons. He catalogued these details automatically, his training kicking in despite years of trying to suppress it. I don't want to hurt you, Marcus said quietly, but I will defend my property. Drake's face flushed with anger. Hurt us? Are you fucking kidding me? He turned to his friends. You hear this little bitch? He thinks he can hurt us. He stepped forward aggressively, the box cutter extended. Let's see what you got, tough guy. What happened next would later be described by witnesses as like something from an action movie. As Drake lunged forward with the box cutter, Marcus moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for someone his size. He sidestepped the attack easily, his right hand capturing Drake's wrist, while his left delivered a short, sharp strike to the elbow. The cracking sound was audible to the onlookers. The box cutter clattered to the pavement as Drake howled in pain, his arm now bent at an unnatural angle. Ryan and Trent stood frozen for a split second before both rushed Marcus simultaneously. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out brass knuckles while Trent withdrew a switchblade. Don't, Marcus warned, but they were beyond listening. Trent slashed wildly with the knife. Marcus slipped inside the arc of the blade, his forearm deflecting Trent's wrist while his elbow connected with the man's temple. Trent crumpled immediately. Before he had even hit the ground, Marcus had pivoted to face Ryan. The brass knuckles whistled harmlessly through the air as Marcus ducked under the swing. His response was two lightning-fast strikes, one to Ryan's solar plexus that left him gasping for air, followed by a precise hit to the side of his knee that sent him sprawling to the asphalt. In less than 15 seconds, all three attackers were incapacitated. Drake was cradling his broken arm, moaning in pain. Trent was unconscious, and Ryan was curled into a fetal position, struggling to breathe. Marcus stood in the center of the scene, his breathing barely elevated. The parking lot had fallen completely silent. The crowd stared in disbelief. Phones still recording. A middle-aged woman whispered loudly to her companion, "Did you see how fast he moved?" An older man nodded, eyes wide. "That was military training. My son's in the Marines. I recognize those moves." The security guard finally approached cautiously. "Sir, I've called the police. They're on their way." Marcus nodded, the cold, analytical part of him already receding, leaving a hollow feeling in its wake. He looked down at his hands, steady, not even a tremor, then over at the three men he'd disabled so efficiently. He hadn't wanted this. He'd tried so hard to leave that part of himself behind. "They attacked me," he said simply. "I defended myself." By the time the police arrived, multiple witnesses had already come forward to confirm Marcus's account. The video evidence from bystanders' phones clearly showed Drake threatening Marcus with the box cutter before attacking. The officers took statements, called ambulances for the three injured men, and ultimately informed Marcus that he was free to go, though they might need him to come to the station later to provide a formal statement. As Marcus finally loaded his now warm groceries into his undamaged Honda, he noticed people looking at him differently, some with admiration, others with fear, but all with a new awareness. His anonymity, the quiet, unassuming life he'd been trying to build, was gone in an instant. A young woman approached him hesitant. "That was amazing," she said. "Those guys have been terrorizing people around here for months. No one's ever stood up to them." Marcus nodded uncomfortably. "I just wanted to get my groceries. Were you in the military?" she asked. Marcus paused before answering. "Yes, a lifetime ago." As he drove home, Marcus felt the familiar weight of his past pressing down on him. He'd spent years trying to become invisible, to blend in, to be just an accountant. Now in a single afternoon he'd revealed himself. By tomorrow the video would probably be online. People at his new job would see it. His carefully constructed, anonymous life in Riverdale was over before it had really begun. At his small rented house, Marcus unloaded his groceries mechanically. He caught his reflection in the kitchen window, just an average-looking man with tired eyes. Not a warrior, not anymore. Or so he had been telling himself. His phone buzzed with a text from his therapist. Somehow she already knew. "Saw the incident. Call me if you need to talk. Remember, defending yourself doesn't mean you're regressing." Marcus set the phone down without responding. Was that true? He hadn't just defended himself, he had systematically dismantled three attackers with precision and efficiency. The muscle memory, the tactical assessment, the cold calculation, it had all come flooding back as if he'd never left the service. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the incident, wondering if he could have handled it differently. Around dawn, he made coffee and sat on his small back porch, watching the sunrise. His doorbell rang at 7:30 a.m. Curious, Marcus went to answer it, finding a middle-aged man in a police uniform standing on his porch. "Mr. Hayden, I'm Chief Wilson, Riverdale Police." The man extended his hand. "I wanted to speak with you personally about yesterday's incident." Marcus invited him in warily, offering coffee, which the chief accepted. "I've reviewed all the evidence," Chief Wilson said, settling into Marcus's spare kitchen chair, "including statements from about 15 witnesses and several videos. It's clear you acted in self-defense." Marcus nodded, but remained silent. Those three, Drake Mercer, Ryan Paulson, and Trent Davies, they've been causing problems in Riverdale for years. Vandalism, intimidation, assaults, but their parents have connections, so they keep avoiding serious consequences. The chief sipped his coffee. "Drake's father is on the city council." "I see," Marcus said carefully. "The father is already threatening a lawsuit against you, but it won't go anywhere. Too many witnesses, too much video evidence." Chief Wilson set his mug down. "What I'm curious about is you, Mr. Hayden. Your background check came back interesting." Marcus stiffened. "I'm an accountant." "Now yes. Before that you were Sergeant First Class Marcus Hayden, Special Forces. 3 tours, numerous commendations, honorable discharge 3 years ago." The chief's eyes were evaluating. "That explains what I saw on those videos." "I left that life behind," Marcus said quietly. "Did you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, those skills saved you from serious harm yesterday." Chief Wilson leaned forward. Look, I'm not here to expose you or cause problems, quite the opposite. What do you mean? Riverdale has changed over the past few years. We've had an influx of wealthy residents, but also some troublemakers like the Mercer kid and his friends. Our department is understaffed and overwhelmed. The chief looked directly at Marcus. We need good people. People with your training and your... He searched for the right word. Restraint. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Restraint? You disabled? 3 armed attackers without causing permanent damage. Drake has a simple fracture that will heal. Trent had a mild concussion. Ryan had bruised ribs and a sprained knee. You could have done much worse to them, but you didn't. Marcus hadn't thought about it that way. In the moment, he had calculated exactly how much force was necessary to neutralize the threat. No more, no less. I'm not looking to go back to any kind of security work, Marcus said firmly. Chief Wilson nodded. I understand, but consider this. Sometimes hiding who you really are causes more problems than it solves. You can be an accountant and still be the man who stood up to bullies in that parking lot. Both are part of who you are. After the chief left, Marcus sat alone for a long time, considering his words. His phone had been buzzing all morning, texts and calls from co-workers who had seen the video online, which had indeed gone viral locally. Finally, he picked up the phone and listened to his voicemails. The last one was from his boss. Marcus, I've seen the video, everyone has. I don't know what kind of life you had before you came to work for us, and frankly, it's none of my business. What I do know is that you're a damn good accountant who defended himself when attacked. As far as I'm concerned, that shows character. See you Monday, and maybe sign up to provide security for the company picnic next month. The joke at the end made Marcus smile despite himself. He walked to his bedroom and opened the closet, pulling out a small locked box from the back. Inside was the one memento he'd kept from his military service, a challenge coin given to him by his commanding officer after a particularly difficult mission. He ran his thumb over the embossed surface, feeling the weight of it in his palm. Perhaps Chief Wilson was right. Perhaps trying to completely erase his past was neither possible nor necessary. He could be Marcus the accountant who was good with numbers and kept to himself. He could also be the man who stood up to bullies and defended himself and others when necessary. Both were true. Both were him. When Marcus went back to work on Monday, he expected stares and whispers. He got them, but not in the way he had feared. His co-workers greeted him with newfound respect. The office manager, a woman in her 50s who had barely acknowledged his existence before, stopped by his desk. My son showed me that video, she said. Those hooligans have been terrorizing people at that shopping center for months. Someone needed to teach them a lesson. Throughout the day, similar interactions occurred. Far from being ostracized, Marcus found himself being included in ways he hadn't been before. People stopped by his desk to chat. He was invited to lunch with a group from the office. It was as if by revealing his strength, he had somehow become more approachable, not less. As for Drake, Ryan, and Trent, the incident had profound consequences. All 3 were arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon and attempted property damage. Drake's father's influence couldn't override the overwhelming evidence. They were sentenced to community service and probation, with the judge making it clear that any further incidents would result in jail time. The following weekend, Marcus was returning to his car after another shopping trip when he spotted Drake. Standing nearby, his arm in a cast, Marcus tensed, preparing for another confrontation, but Drake raised his good hand in a gesture of peace. Can I talk to you? Drake asked, his voice lacking its previous aggression. Marcus nodded cautiously. I wanted to say... Drake seemed to struggle with the words. I acted like an asshole, I'm sorry. Marcus studied the younger man. The humiliation of being so easily defeated had clearly affected him. The bravado was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like genuine remorse. What you did, Drake continued, the way you fought, that was something else. My uncle was in the military. He said you must have been special forces or something. Marcus neither confirmed nor denied, just waited. Anyway, I just wanted to say, no hard feelings about the arm. Drake looked down at his cast. I deserved worse, we all did. As Drake walked away, Marcus felt something shift inside him, a reconciliation of his past and present selves. He would always carry the skills and experiences from his military service. They were part of him, for better or worse. But how he chose to use those skills, that was entirely up to him. Over the following months, Marcus slowly allowed himself to integrate more fully into the Riverdale community. He joined a veterans support group at the chief's suggestion. He volunteered to teach a self-defense class at the community center, focusing on awareness and de-escalation techniques rather than combat. He even eventually accepted a part-time position as a security consultant for the police department, helping train officers in non-lethal restraint methods. His accounting career continued to flourish, with his methodical, detail-oriented approach earning him a promotion within his first year. But now, instead of trying to be invisible, he allowed his colleagues to know him, not just as the quiet numbers guy, but as someone with depth and complexity. The incident in the parking lot had forced Marcus to confront the truth he had been avoiding. You can't outrun who you are. Instead, he learned to embrace all aspects of himself, the accountant who found peace in balancing ledgers, and the warrior who could stand up to bullies when necessary. Neither cancelled out the other. Together they made him whole. 1 year after the confrontation, Marcus was leaving work when he spotted a familiar black pickup truck in the parking lot. His heart rate quickened momentarily until he saw Drake, leaning against it now without a cast, waiting respectfully at a distance. "Mr. Hayden," Drake called out. "Got a minute?" Marcus approached cautiously. "What can I do for you, Drake?" "I enlisted," Drake said without preamble. "Army. Heading to basic training next week." Marcus raised his eyebrows in surprise. "That's quite a change." Drake nodded. "After what happened, it made me think about my life, about the kind of man I want to be." He looked Marcus directly in the eyes. "I want to be someone who protects people, not scares them. Someone like you." Marcus felt an unexpected emotion well up, a mix of pride and hope. The military can help you find discipline and purpose, but it's not magic. The change has to come from within you. "I know," Drake said seriously. "That's why I wanted to tell you. You could have really hurt me that day, but you didn't. You just did what you had to do, then walked away. That taught me something important." As they shook hands, Marcus realized that his moment of revealing his true self, the confrontation he had dreaded and regretted, had created an unexpected ripple effect. By standing up to a bully, he hadn't just defended himself, he had potentially changed the course of that bully's life. Marcus watched Drake drive away, no longer feeling conflicted about his past. The skills he had acquired as a soldier had found a new purpose in civilian life, not for violence but for protection, for teaching, for transforming lives, including his own. He had finally found the balance he had been seeking all along. In the end, it wasn't about hiding who he was or revealing his past to everyone he met. It was about accepting all parts of himself and using his unique abilities to make a positive difference in his new community. The quiet accountant and the highly trained warrior weren't separate identities in conflict. They were complementary aspects of a complex human being who had found his place in the world.